Welcome to another interview for Meet the Coach. I'm Lindsay Heiserman, co-chair of the communications of ICF Minnesota. And today we have Danielle Allen here to tell us all about her coaching business. And thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's just really get to the good things. The questions will be fairly straightforward, but I tend to always ask additional questions of things I want to
Love it.
know.
Yep.
So, what brought you to coaching?
Well, I feel like coaching found me. I didn't really find coaching. So I was working in a church with adult education and really felt like there was something next that I really didn't know what that was. And so I started just exploring. I was doing some writing. I had a coworker who was attending Adler Graduate School and told me about their coaching program. So I met with Paula, who was in charge of their program when they had it. They don't have it anymore. And then she also introduced me to Learning Journeys. And because I was already kind of a coaching leader, it felt like a really great next step for me to move into coaching. So that's how I got into coaching. I also ended up really burning out on my church job and signed up for coaching certification and then quit my job. So Jenny and Ruthie thought I was crazy when I attended my first learning journey
Mhm.
class because I was like, yeah, I quit my job.
Yeah,
You're
I
right.
get
But it really was just a next step for me. I felt like I was already
it.
coaching people in leadership and I just wanted the tools
Yeah.
to do it well and do it right. So,
Fun fact, I don't know if we've discussed this, but I too went to Adler Graduate School and
oh,
I was with Paula and I did that coaching program.
oh, yeah. So I was still working at the church at the time when I checked into it. And because the program was on the weekends when I checked into it, and that wasn't gonna work for me because I worked on the weekends, so it was like,
Yeah.
"What am I gonna do?" And that's why I headed to Learning Journeys, but yeah, I was interested in that program as well, so
Yeah. I saw that in your notes and I was like, we've got to talk about that. That's where I did my
oh,
coaching. Yeah.
funny.
So tell us more about your coaching practice. I know you have a very specific coaching practice.
I do. So I started as just a general life coach. Like a lot of coaches, really didn't had narrowed down my niche because of my faith background with working at a church. I really focused on faith and life coaching, purpose coaching, kind of finding your place. But a few years in, the Enneagram found me. So now I really focus my practice on Enneagram coaching. So I use the Enneagram with life coaching. The Enneagram is a really a personality typing system. It has 9
Mhm.
types, focuses more on why you do what you do, and can really help you um, cultivate emotional health, but also kind of the pieces that you need to specifically focus on to grow. So
Yeah.
I now use that. I help people find their type, and then I help them kind of do personal development using the work of the Enneagram, the tool of the Enneagram. So,
Mhm.
mhm,
So the next question that goes with that before I ask a question I want to know, which is what do you love about your coaching work?
yeah. I feel like, well, one, I love seeing people grasp that they know what's best to change their lives. Like that, that always appealed to me when I was going through my certification, and to be able to see it happening is amazing. I think when I added the Enneagram, there is an aha piece to the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Where the patterns of behavior that keep happening get addressed because now all of a sudden you understand, okay, this is the coping mechanism I'm using to
Hmm.
drives me to this. And so now I can kind of trace back what's under the iceberg and really do some good growth practices that will help me address those things so that I'm free to move forward. And I think that's the biggest piece I love about my current practice is that I get to talk about this tool that is so eye opening and can help people truly change both in their relationship. For me, it's important the faith aspect, so relationship with God,
Yeah.
relationship with themselves, which I think is the key, and then relationship with others. So,
Well, it's such a great bridge. With coaching, you don't always, and this is another question in a moment, but you don't always have specific tools depending on your style of coaching, right? There are different activities or things you can do to get to know someone. with coaching. But for you, it's like you have this very concrete thing, which also I feel alleviates a little of the not guilt, but the way people feel about themselves. You can be almost a little more honest because you're like, well, this type typically exhibits these behaviors. Do any of these match for you? And they're probably like, yes, all of them.
Yeah, so that I mean, I typically start with every person with a typing coaching session. So what
Yep,
we do with that is really just try to narrow down kind of where their motivation lies out of the 9 types, and
yep.
then do a deep dive really on what's driving that, um, and in the end, really help them do that applying. So using those powerful coaching questions to say, okay, how do we want to use this? From there, they can actually do more deep diving. Or we can do life coaching. I do a lot of team coaching because there's
Mhm.
communication. Each type has a communication style. There's a just such a broad aspect of where you can go from there, and based on what the goals people have or the changes they want to make in their lives. So yeah, to your point, it's a good starting place for me, and that's where I like to start with everyone. Um, so
Yeah. Well, and it's just a nice way, I think, to really identify like, this is just the way I am. And then how does that affect my life? Right. Instead of, well, I don't know how I act. It brings sort of a automatic self-awareness.
mhm,
If you're like, well, this is the type, again, kind of what I said earlier, this is pretty typical. Does it resonate? Is easier than saying, like, what are your coping skills? And people are like, I don't know.
right. The other interesting thing is through my certification training with the Enneagram, which was ICF accredited as well. Um, the gal who taught us, she talked about how each type has a different need from their coach. So as a coach, it helps me when I start there,
Mm,
it kind of helps me show up differently depending on their Enneagram type.
okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah, like, so some types really would be more goal oriented or future oriented. So you want to be trying to move them forward. Other types will resent you trying to get the goals in there, and they want to take it at their own pace, or they just have
Yeah.
a different what we call an Enneagram focus of attention, or kind of their radar, like
Yeah.
on their radar. And so it really can be helpful to know their Enneagram type when you're coaching, regardless of whether you coach with the Enneagram. So
That is really interesting because I'm just thinking about when I ask people, how do you want to be accountable? What do you want from me as a coach? Right. Sometimes they have a hard time knowing what that is.
yeah,
Sometimes they're really self aware and they know, but that's a cool tool that you can just say, this is pretty typical.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Let's see what's next. I said we would get into tools. So, what are some of your coaching tools or books or podcasts that you like to help you stay informed as a coach?
Yeah, so now I use mostly Enneagram work, powerful questions, some tools that I learned at learning journeys I will use with clients. I think they use the ontological approach, and so I can't say enough about their training and preparing me to be a coach. But most days I'm using the Enneagram, and then
Yeah.
we're diving deep into the Enneagram. So there are some resources that I really, really like. There's a couple of books that I recommend. One is my favorite kind of go-to resource is the 9 Types of Leadership, 9 Types of Leaders by Beatrice Chestnut. If you're not familiar with the Enneagram community, she's well-known teacher in the community. And that book is fascinating and kind of a little bit of a handbook for me when I work
Mhm.
with teams in churches, in non-for-profits, and businesses, and that's always kind of a handbook because she outlines how each type shows up to work, what their
Yeah.
blind spots are. I don't know if you've read that, since I know you're familiar with the Enneagram. Then there's a couple of new books that I've picked up, spiritual practices for each type. That is really great too, in that it goes through um, each type and then specific practices and exercises. So I use a lot of those for my own coaching practice.
Yeah.
And another guy just wrote a kind of a small primer on um, the Enneagram and spiritual formation. So because I'm faith based oriented, I use a lot of that.
Yeah.
But again, the tool itself actually kind of paves the way, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
there's all this, if you don't know the Enneagram, there's movement within it. And so it helps you understand, okay, where am I shooting for? What's holding me back from that? And then what are some practices, whether you're a faith-based person or not,
Yep.
there's practices to practice, from regular rest for some to, you know, being present, just so many of the kind of ways we have of showing up
Yeah.
and being intentional with those things. So yeah.
Would you say that people could read about the Enneagram even if they're not working with a coach? Is it a helpful tool just to become more aware?
Yeah, I think the book that I recommend to start with is The
Mhm.
Road Back to You by Ian Morgan Cron. I think that is a good primer.
Yep.
Um, you don't need to work with a coach. I think where people get stuck with the Enneagram is they go, there's all kinds of online tests, but they're
Mhm.
not 100% accurate. So
Yep.
people take a free test and then they've decided that they're, you know, a number, but what they talk about is not actually accurate Enneagram theory. So you're like, you have one dominant type, and then you can't, like, your second result is not your second, like your wing, like things
Yeah.
that we talk about. So the coach can help you actually narrow down, right? Most coaches are trained in the typing session, and then they can also help you figure out the growth practices for your type, kind of
Mhm.
explore. There's all kinds of layers to the Enneagram, from what we call wings, which are the types on either side of you that you can borrow traits from, to kind of your arrows, which indicate kind of stress and growth. So I think that's where the coach can help, but you can start your own research. A lot of people do. And a lot of people start there and then discover, okay, I still don't know what type I am, or I still don't understand
Yeah.
what I'm supposed to do with this.
Yep.
That's where I think a coach could help, that's trained in the Enneagram. So
Mhm. That's great.
it's good.
How has ICF Minnesota helped you as a coach?
Yeah, so I got my certification from Learning Journeys, and then I kind of did things on my own. I didn't join ICF right away. I, and I was doing it part time. I was working and doing my business, and I just didn't know a lot of coaches. Like, I
Mhm.
knew the people I went through the program with at Learning Journeys, but that was it. And really, when I was asked, I actually joined ICF and joined the board at the same time to work on the website. And
I understand that.
yes, so but the thing about it is, since I've joined, I really feel so connected, so much more connected to the coaching community. I feel like it's really helped me, just grow as a coach.
Mhm.
And, I've really loved the, professional development, events where, someone's brought in, but it's really expanded my horizon on, like, what coaching is, or theories behind coaching, or brain science. Like, all of that is so also new to me still. And so I feel like I've been educated more, but also connected more with other coaches and learning from them. So some of them are, you know, ahead of me in their business building, and some are at the same level. And it's been good to find good peers that I can, uh, learn and grow with and from. So,
Mhm. That's great. And I think too, people are doing very different coaching,
mhm,
which I love, right? All the different
mhm.
places and ways that coaching can be utilized is really fun to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's been eye opening to me as well. So, just really realizing there's so much out there as far as
Yep.
coaching, and how what you specialize in, and then even just how we help our clients become who they were meant to be. So,
Last question. How can people connect with you?
well, my website is onefootcoaching.com. And then, I'm on Facebook as One Foot Coaching, and on Instagram as at One Foot Coach. So those are some great ways to connect with me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle. And I hope people dive into the Enneagram with you.
Yes, that would be fun.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next month for another interview of Meet the Coach.